So I'd like to welcome you all today. Welcome to this great event. Amazing candidates here in Gilroy. This is your opportunity to get a little insight, information on who they are, where they're at, where they're going, where they've been. Rebecca Armaderos will be handling the moderator job today, and I'll tell you what, if you don't know, recognize, she will handle it, no doubt about it. These are your candidates, Gilroy. Let's pay attention, let's figure it out. Here we go.
All right. Thank you, Al. Good afternoon, candidates. Today we'll start with 1-minute introductions, and then we'll move on to the question and answers. Mr. Velasco, could you start, please? A 1-minute introduction.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up here at Old City Hall today. I'm running for mayor of Gilroy because I care deeply about our city. I know firsthand that elected officials can make a positive difference in our community. There are numerous issues that will be decided and discussed in the next few years. And the choices made by our leaders will have a tremendous impact on our community, on the future of our city, our local economy, our infrastructure, and our ability all depend upon elected officials making sound judgments for everybody. And this also includes the safety and security of our residents as well. As a current council member, I've always made fair, independent, and educated decisions for the betterment of our city. I want to ensure that Gilroy remains the best place to live and work and play. Thank you.
You want to introduce us? You want us just to go?
Sure.
Just go?
Mayor Woodward.
Okay, so thank you. I'm Perry Woodward. I'm the mayor of Gilroy. I'm a fourth-generation Gilroyan. Can you hear me? I'm a fourth-generation Gilroyan, local business attorney, U.S. Navy veteran, husband and father of 2 daughters in public elementary school, and I'm running to continue my 9 years of service to the city of Gilroy. The challenges that we face are going to require a lot of forward-looking leadership, and that's particularly true with respect to downtown. We're here to talk about downtown issues today. I had my first job in downtown in 1985, and I can tell you about, as we go on today, maybe some of the changes I've seen since they moved the highway out of town, built the outlets, and the URM problem. So we've seen a lot of changes in downtown. We're rebounding, and I'm ready to lead us forward. My first house was in downtown. I've moved out of downtown now, so I'm no longer conflicted out. I can vote on some of those things. And the people who I'm going to be working with know me and trust me. I'm endorsed by a majority of the city council and a majority of the school board. And I look forward to leading us forward into a better Gilroy.
Hello, my name is Craig Gartman and I'm running for City Council. As people have heard recently, there's a need for the community's voice on City Council. And I want to be that voice. I want to listen to the community and make sure that your messages, your concerns, your problems are brought to the council and made sure that they're talked about and discussed and decided upon with that input. We have some great opportunities with Facebook and Nextdoor. And I've been listening and watching the comments, and I think that is a good sounding board for bringing stuff to the City Council. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Klecker, and I'm a 35-year resident of the city of Gilroy. My particular background is that I'm an engineer, and I've also had advanced degree work in financial management. So those are engineering, planning, and facilities tends to be my favorite subject. What I think, I'm running for the Gilroy City Council to bring my experience back to the City Council. I served 3 prior terms on the City Council, and at that time I was working in Silicon Valley, and so I spent a lot of time in regional boards and commissions up in the Valley, including at one time I was vice president of ABAG, which is Association of Bay Area Governments. So this time I probably will stick closer to home and would like to focus on downtown and in the recreation areas and in mainly public safety and financial integrity of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's watch that come there.
Can you guys speak louder because those microphones don't work for the audience?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I assume you could hear me now. My name is Daniel Harney, and I want to continue serving on the City Council. I was selected by the current City Council in January 2016, right after Don Gage retired. What I've learned about leadership in Gilroy is that if you want to lead a community, you have to know and understand what challenges this community faces and what they want out of the community. In order to know if someone's ready for the job, ask them what they want to do with the job in the first place. I'm a 41-year-old father of 3, and I love my children more than anything. I want them to grow up in a great town that has a strong sense of heritage and a great local economy and a safe place that they can go to downtown. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fred Tovar. Thank you for taking the time to learn about myself and my candidacy. I am currently the board president of the Gilroy Unified School District. I've been on the board now 8 years, fighting for our students. As you know, we are the largest employer of Gilroy. I fight for local business. I fight for excellence. I fight to raise the bar in education for our students. I'm glad to be endorsed by CSCA, local Gilroy 69, the president of the Gilroy Teachers Association, the Sierra Club, the Labor Councils, South County Democratic Party. As your city council member, I will fight to maintain the high quality of life Gilroy residents deserve, ensuring that quality schools are in place, and keeping our environment safe and sustainable. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom Fisher. I'm a 65-year-old retired plumber and a 40-year resident of Gilroy. I also serve on the Planning Commission for the last 5 years. I'm also on the Development Standards Task Force, the General Plan Update Committee, and the High-Speed Rail Downtown Area Plan Committee. I came here today, hopefully, to answer questions that you have and to let you get a better sense of who I am. I hope at the end of the day, I can get your support. Thank you.
All right. So leave the mic here, and we'll start question 1 with Tom Fisher. Mr. Fisher, what are your top 3 priorities to revitalize downtown? Things that the council can address within the next year.
Well, there are 2 things I think that I would like to see happen in the downtown in the near future. I don't know that they can be done in the first year. One is the revitalization, the repairs and the updates to the Art Center. It needs seismic work. Once that's done, they'll be able to expand their operation there, which will draw more people to the downtown. Secondly, I'd like to see a park built downtown. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I'm a retired plumber. I'm in construction. And in construction, things are sequenced. And I think there's a sequence that has to be followed before we get to that. So the 3 things that need to happen in the next year. Number 1, the high-speed rail downtown station plan has to be at least completed to a point where we know what to expect. Number 2, the general plan has to be finished. The update of the general plan has to be completed. And number 3, most importantly, the downtown specific plan has to be revised. Those 3 things have to be done before any major steps can be taken for the downtown. Because if you don't know it already, high-speed rail is going to have a major impact on the downtown. And that needs to be included in the planning for the downtown specific plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, I have to agree with Mr. Fisher here in regards to the general plan. But for me, I look at 3 things. I look at capitalizing on the proximity of Caltrain and also the high-speed rail, making sure that we promote downtown, use downtown as a resource, not only for the residents of Gilroy, but for the commuters that may be commuting on Caltrain or the high-speed rail. In addition, I would also encourage high-density projects. I believe in building up and not out, so I think doing that, it'll make downtown more of a resource for our community, and also encourage the creation of outside dining businesses. So again, our family, our friends to come visit Gilroy and enjoy the downtown and understand that this is our home, and we should take advantage of all the wonderful individuals that we have here in Gilroy. Thank you.
So what are my top 3 priorities for this year to revitalize downtown? I think that there's 3 really important things that we have to discuss today. First, what is the process for getting a business permit for downtown? Is that simple? Is that hard? Is the EDC facilitating that process with new potential business investors? So that's the first thing I want to take a look at, is what is our business permit process? How long does that take, and can we shrink it from this amount down to this amount and provide the right leadership to the business investors to come into our town? Second thing is, what are the policies that our town can create that will attract businesses here? I met with the business development manager of Tesla last week, and one of the things he told me was, how is Gilroy an opportunistic location for people to come in? Give you an example. Tesla likes to set up charging stations where people can be distracted while their cars charge. You may have seen on Facebook, I posted that we have 2 charging locations in all of Gilroy. One is behind the Clada, and another one is at Kerrigan Winery. So what are the opportunities that we're creating to bring people into downtown? Can we set up a reduction in impact fees, or can we waive impact fees for 5 years? And then finally, how do we position Gilroy as a great place to invest? If you talk to Tammy Brownlow at EDC, she'll tell you she's significantly understaffed to put together packages, to go to trade shows, to market our town as an investment opportunity. She just doesn't have the manpower to do that. So we need to invest in EDC, and we need to put some funding back into downtown. Thank you.
Good morning again. My top priorities for downtown are things that I've heard the most complaints about, and that seems to be, first of all, I want to say that I share some of the opinions given by my colleagues here, and I won't repeat those with regard to high-speed rail and updating specific plan, etc. However, where I hear the most complaints and the most concern from a lot of different people is in the area of parking, and I think there needs to be an updated parking survey of the entire downtown. And this would include the resolution of the question with regard where does the parking garage go. Secondly, I would be concerned about other complaints that I hear that people are, we want people to be coming downtown, but I constantly hear that they are, we're afraid to go downtown. I'm afraid to go down there at night. So public safety is a very, very definite issue that we need to address and resolve, and I know the police chief is working on that too, so that's one of her top priorities. And thirdly, an issue that I hear complaints about is in the area of, as Mr. Harney said, in the area of processing of work to be done by various proposed business owners downtown, that they can't get through the process. They're just not involved in dealing with Gilroy anymore. That's a terrible indictment of our downtown, terrible indictment of our city, and I think we really need to address that. And I think that that's all hands effort on the part of the city staff, all the stakeholders involved, and I hope to address that if I am elected, and I hope I am. Thank you.
Water.
Make sure we don't spill that
don't
water.
Spill my water. A little bourbon in it.
So when I was looking at the top 3 priorities, if elected to the city council, what to address in the next year, I thought of 3 things. One is fast-tracking the permitting process with removal of the permitting fees for URM and ADA improvements that need to be made to some of the buildings down here. When you look at it, it all comes down to dollars. And you need to make sure that you're creating a friendly environment for people to invest in this downtown. The second one would be to suspend the impact fees for applicants that are coming to the city for the next 2 years. And the reason I put a time frame on it is for business people, you got to put some kind of urgency in there. And if you make it open-ended, you find that they'll drag their feet as well. So that's the second point. The last one is to bring the downtown specific plan up to date. It was last brought up to date in 2005. There's a lot of good issues in it, and I think we need to bring it up to today's standards. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So that was there's five council candidates here, and we had the questions sometime in advance, and they all gave great answers. But the one thing that none of them listed was to fix the URM problem. Right? It's all out of our minds because it's being taken care of. Well, I'll tell you, I put in hundreds of hours of my public service career into taking care of it. We've been fixing that URM problem very, very well. And we've got it down now to about 10 URM buildings from almost 40 at one time. And most of those buildings, there's only 3 or 4 that aren't in the process. So we've got to continue that. Can't let off the pressure. We have to continue. The hardest ones are the ones left still to be done. So let's finish the URMs. We've already had a lot of success there. The Shag Beauty Bar, the Lido Gallery, the Green Glaze Pottery, all of those were one-time URM buildings, and now they're occupied with businesses. But that needs to still go on, and it still needs to happen. It's not going to take care of itself. We need parking. We need parking downtown. And, you know, there's something going on that nobody's really seemed to be taking notice of, but the crime rate in Gilroy has started to tick back up. Violent crime in Gilroy was up 18%. And those of you, I see people out there who've lived in this community a long time, if crime goes up in Gilroy, it's going to affect our downtown. It's not a downtown specific issue, but it will have a more dramatic impact on downtown than anywhere else. So we've got to address that. We need impact fee zones. Our general plan is on hold. As a consequence of that, we're not able to do the studies that need to be done to implement a new impact fee zone. But I've been in favor, since I came on the council in 2007, of making downtown a low impact fee zone. If you waive the fees, like has been suggested, the city has to come up with that money out of the general fund or some other place to backfill that, and we don't have that money. But if we create a lower fee structure in downtown, then we can allow development to go forward at what is equivalent to, oh, I'm out of time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to address this important question. My focus is and has always been the Arts Center. We need to really remove the attendance cap that is currently on the Arts Center. Right now it's at 49 people within the building, and that's not a city requirement, that's a state requirement. I think with the small investment and phasing in improvements, we could actually start to remove that attendance cap. Once more people are able to go in there, more people will be able to come downtown. It could actually act as a cornerstone for improvements here in the downtown area. So the Arts Center, I think, should be a top priority. Secondly, I want to strengthen the Gilroy Downtown Business Association. Right now, we need to be able to show up. We need a mayor that's willing to show up to some of these meetings at the Downtown Business Association. You know, with all due respect to Perry, over the last year, I've been showing up to these meetings and he's been absent. We need to have at least a mayor willing to show up to the Downtown Business Association and participate in these meetings. It'll show support, it'll show community support, and as a figurehead, I think it's important for him to be there. And I promise you, if I'm elected, I will be attending. We also need a mayor that's willing to participate in downtown events. You know, I'm willing to get my hands dirty. I've strung up lights here on the trees here downtown. I've participated in 5th Street Live. I've had a a booth over at the car show, and I help take down events. So we need a mayor that's willing to be active and participate in downtown. And lastly, this leads me to my final point. We don't have a downtown if we don't have businesses here that are willing to be supported. Thank you.
All right. It sounded like there was a mayoral candidate challenge as to who could spend more time volunteering at the Daman Festival next Sunday. So I'll be keeping score. Fred, you'll take our next question. What solutions would you recommend and take the lead on to bring before the entire city council for consideration?
Well, before I go into that, I think one of the things that I bring as an individual is my collaborative skills working with folks from all different sort of backgrounds. I am not one that's negative toward anyone. I really focus on working to get the solution done, the problem done. So for me, I think there'd be a couple things. I think identify a parcel for a parking structure. We've talked about that. People are talking about that. So that could be used for City Hall, for the library, and especially for downtown. I think it's way overdue, and as a city council member, I will fight to make sure that hopefully that project moves forward. In addition to that, I would also encourage and work for the creation of a pedestrian or a bike connection from within downtown, from the train station, from other locations in the city, to really start bringing more folks to downtown. As I mentioned earlier, as GUSD, the Gilroy Unified School District, we are the largest employer of Gilroy with over 1,000 employees. It's time to bring those employees to downtown. Start using downtown as a resource. So for me, I think those are the things I would really work on as your city council member. Okay.
That's one question too. So that's a very good question. What solutions would you recommend and take the lead on to bring before the entire city council? Well, since I've been on city council, I've had the privy to understand the organization at City Hall. And I could tell you, we lack a lot of in-town leadership. If you talk to any developer that wants to work here or does work here and is running projects, they will tell you that we have a lack of leadership at City Hall, and we don't have people who can make decisions and bosses that stand beside those decisions. So we could talk about bike paths, we could talk about high-speed rail, we could talk about a lot of things that cost a lot of money. But the first thing any organization needs is leadership. Qualified people who have a stake in the community, who have a vested interest in the community. So the first thing I want to do is beef up economic development. We need more people there. The second thing is we need a full-time business development manager. At the moment, we have someone that's acting as an interim person, and prior to that, we had Lee Butler, who left us in January. We're hiring a new finance director to help us with financial issues that the city is facing. These are all leadership questions, and without having leadership in the right positions, we can't solve some of these problems.
Thank you. One of the things that I've been impressed with over the past few years has been in the area of strategic planning by the City Council. Now, when I was on the council before, we always had annual goal-setting sessions and some semblance of strategic planning. But now that has been brought to a new level of refinement, and I'm really glad to see that. And I think this is done normally in the first few months of the year after the council gets seated, and it is done in quite significant detail, which I'm pleased to see. So I want to be a participant in that planning process, which is done over 2 or 3 days, etc., on weekend by the council members and the staff, and it results in a very, very definite strategic plan which applies to all different departments. And I think that's what I would like to work on to ensure that that is done. And I think that a nice feature of that is that and I hope it continues this year, is that it was also required or urged of different organizations in town, such as the Chamber of Commerce and the Gilroy Gardens Association, and also the EDC and the Visitors Center, such that hopefully we're all marching together on similar plans and not getting into conflict with each other, because that just doesn't work at all. We've seen that. We need to work together to get our act together and start marching together. And I want to say one thing to my good friend Perry. He may be a Navy veteran, but I'm more of a Navy veteran than that. But we both happen to be Seabees.
Well, I'm not a Navy veteran.
We won't hold that against you.
but my son is a Navy veteran, and
Good.
he got to go on the cruise on the Stennis, and I got to join him on a Tiger cruise at the end. So what solutions will we bring? One of the things that I think we need to talk about is that downtown specific plan. I'd like to see the council put together a task force at the very beginning, made up of a lot of community members, being the downtown business owners and those people that live in the immediate area, that will actually work on creating the update for that specific plan. The other thing has to do with going after these impact fees, as has been described here by a couple other people. When you get into the financial realm of redevelopment in the downtown area, you really have to go after some of the money sources, because it's the people that have those resources that are going to rebuild our buildings and open the businesses. And then, of course, the last one has to do with the URM. And we need to, as we've done now, and we've seen the success, keep our eyes focused on URM issues, and let's get those out of the way so that that is not a barrier to bringing business into the downtown area. Thanks.
Well, I want to respond to some of those comments that were made a little while ago about me not being downtown, stringing up lights, or being at different things. You have to ask yourself, what do you want your mayor to be? And I'm the chair of Caltrain. There's a train station in downtown. As the chair of Caltrain, I'm working to bring electrified train service to Gilroy. The rest of the service is going to be electrified. It's already in the plan. It's not getting electrified to Gilroy. What's that going to mean for us? You want me downtown stringing up lights, or you want me up in San Carlos hand fighting with those people to make sure that we get our share of the electrification money? Ask yourself that. Who's the largest landowner in downtown? Anybody know who's the largest landowner in downtown Gilroy? The Valley Transportation Authority. They own 6 acres in downtown. It's our train station. What's going to happen to that land? Last year I was the chair of the VTA, making sure that we keep control of our land in downtown so that Gilroy is involved in the decisions that affect us on a regional basis. So you have to ask yourself where you want your mayor to be. And as my colleagues up here, if they ever become mayor, will find there's a lot of places you have to be, and you can't be at all the meetings. But something was misrepresented to you. I didn't plan to be mayor this year. I became mayor on a 5-to-1 vote of my colleagues, and I stepped into that role willingly, and I've tried to do the job as best I can, and I have been to Downtown Business Association meetings. I see nodding heads out there because there's people who were there with me, and my colleague to the left of me here was not at those meetings. So he may have made some meetings that I didn't, but I still do go to those meetings.
So we just heard a response from Perry. He really didn't answer the question, which is, what is he going to recommend and bring before the entire city council for consideration? I think that really shows his willingness to avoid these questions and try to paint himself in the best positive light. You know, frankly, as I mentioned before, the Art Center is important to me. I think that could be a cornerstone for our downtown area. We need to be able to provide the kind of support, necessary financial support to the Art Center. In addition, this election is important because regardless of what happens with Measure H, we need leadership on the council dais. And once the decision on Measure H is decided, then we will be able to move forward with our general plan, and from our general plan will flow the specific plans for downtown, and within that we could start to really look at the fee structure. How are we charging fees for the downtown businesses, and how is that going to affect the recruitment of bringing in new investors into the downtown area? Because at the end of the day, it is really about investors, it's about downtown property owners, it's about business entrepreneurs who want to set up shop in downtown. Thank you.
So our third question, no, it's Dan's turn. Yeah. But before we go on to our set questions, a number of you noticed, oh, I'm sorry, Tom. You're right. You're right. I know what you're saying. But let me give you the mic so you can answer that. And then I have a question that's off that you weren't given ahead of time, but it's come up. So sorry, Tom.
Thank you.
Give you extra 10 seconds.
This is solutions for to bring before the entire council. Well, the one thing that I would certainly consider is looking at the fee structures for businesses coming into downtown. But I would not be in support of waiving those fees. The city works on a cost recovery basis. So if you don't recover the costs for businesses coming to downtown, then those costs should be shifted to anybody who wants to go anywhere else in the city. That's not right. That's not fair. And people that have already spent that money downtown to build their buildings or fix their buildings or occupy those buildings, how's it fair to them? If the bookstore or the new gun store, if they paid their fees, why should the next guy not pay fees? So I would not be in favor of waiving the fees. But I certainly would be willing to look at restructuring the fees if we have evidence to show that that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is about those fees. A number of you talked about waiving them or freezing them for a short time, and maybe even having a fee zone for those fees. But how would the city recover costs or provide the services that we need if we're waiving those type of fees? How do we get services and recreational facilities and parks and libraries? How do we get that stuff paid for if these fees are waived? So those of you who proposed waiving the fees, could you please answer that? Dan, I think you mentioned it.
I didn't propose waiving the fees. What I proposed was allowing the fees to be paid over 5-year time, or setting up a policy that allows the businesses to be successful and pay off the fees as they are successful.
Me?
Are you waiving fees?
No.
Well, I just use history. And when our local neighbor, San Jose, created a trade-free zone, they ended up with a large number of businesses that came into that area and employed thousands of people and created a huge tax base that today still provides income to the city of San Jose. Why don't we make downtown something similar to that, make it a trade zone?
Rebecca, thank you for that question. I'm glad to answer that because it goes to exactly why I didn't propose waiving fees. What I said we should do is to modify the impact fee structure so that less fees are paid downtown. Impact fees are supposed to be a connection between what is paid and the services that are going to be provided. So if you're doing development on a farm in the north, that's going to have a lot more impact and be a lot more expensive to provide services than if you're rehabbing a URM building in downtown. So your question is right on point. That's why we shouldn't waive fees, because we still have to provide all the services, but we should make the fees so that they are commensurate with the amount of expense the city's going to associate with the development. And that's why downtown, which is close to the city center, is all built out. Much of the infrastructure, all of the infrastructure really is in place, can afford to pay less impact fees, and it doesn't make any sense, frankly, that it's not set up that way. But there's legally steps we have to go through, and one of those involves the general plan. So that needs to be done. So that's the answer. Is the format today, by the way, I just want to ask a question on how the format's going to work. Is it going to be that Councilman Velasco gets to go after me and respond to me every time?
No, I think
okay, thank you.
I'll come back to that. But we'll be got time if you go after me.
We can separate this.
I just don't think it's fair he goes after me every time.
No, I agree.
You went after me on the first question. All right, so Rebecca, thank you so much for asking this question. When it comes to the fee structure, we have to keep in mind that the fee structure is for the impact, and downtown has very different impacts than if you were to build a house over in the northwest quad or over in the southwest. Those impacts are very, very different. However, if we're looking at like a retail, we need to keep in mind that what we're trying to do is attract businesses to downtown. And once a business is successful in downtown, then that business generates the sales tax, which comes into the city, which helps provide the police, the fire, the parks, the recreation activities. So we want to try to encourage these buildings to show up, but we need to minimize their impact fees, especially right now when we're trying to revitalize the downtown area. If one day in the future things are booming and we don't need to incentivize the downtown, then we could have that conversation then. Thank you.
Yeah, we need that. These are 1 minute. No, I'm sorry. These are 2 minute. These are 2 minute. 2 minute, pardon me. You guys have 2 minutes for the next question. Describe your personal vision for downtown Gilroy, including the northern and southern gateways. Sir.
If anyone ever has the opportunity to take a moment, I suggest you look up Jane Jacobs. She was a pioneer in gentrification of downtown areas, and she was also the person that wanted to preserve a part of New York City and Greenwich Village. And she helped make sure that Greenwich Village maintained the fabric of the community. And I think that's one of the things we have to keep in mind as we go through this massive transformation. In 10 years, we will have high-speed rail coming through downtown. So the South Gateway has to make sure that we have the right product mix and the right clusters for responding to high-speed rail. Let me give you an example of the South Cluster. It should be recreation-based. That's why we have the sports park down there. The bike trail should connect to Gilroy Gardens. As Gilroy Garden expands and grows, you'll see more outside attractions to that area. As you move up from that south end of downtown, you'll come to hotels. We have to be planning for convention centers and parking for high-speed rail. Is high-speed rail going to be above grade, at grade, or are we going to be going below grade? Below grade is absolutely out of the question. When you come downtown, I think we need to preserve some of our historic buildings. We need to create an ambiance for people to come and enjoy the arts and entertainment district. So Council Member Velasco keeps talking about a downtown arts center. I think it's deplorable that we have 55,000 people in our town and no arts center. Arts bring people downtown. They enjoy arts and entertainment, they enjoy food, they enjoy wine, and it keeps them downtown and it improves the perception of safety as well. As we look north, I think we have to keep in mind what is... 2 minutes.
My vision for downtown is both ends of town. If you want to focus on the gateway, both ends of town need an awful lot of work. It's going to take a long period of time and a lot of money to do it. We're definitely not satisfied with the way these gateway areas look now. As a member of the Planning Commission, I opposed the last apartment development down there, which unfortunately was approved by the City Council, and perhaps for legal reasons. But anyway, I agree with Mr. Harney that probably the southern end of town, because it is already largely, or in many places, athletic related and recreation related, I think that should continue in that vogue. As far as the north end goes, I think that also needs an awful lot of work, but the bottom line is that there's just not any good available source of money to do anything about that. We have to search for ways to do that. I've been in Gilroy long enough to remember when the trucks used to go through Monterey Street, and I'm sure there are people in the audience that also remember that. So we've come a long way. However, there's still a long way to go, and the problems are not easy, and the solutions are not easy, but I think we've been definitely on the right track. It's just been agonizingly slow.
Thank you, Paul. For the north and south entrances, it's been suggested before, and I want to follow up on that suggestion, and that was to have grand entrances, archways, nice monument signs that welcome people to the town. Because if you come in from those areas, there's tiny little signs that say City of Gilroy. So I'd like to have us have a little bit better presence for when people drive into town. As far as vision, as has been discussed here, more restaurants, food courts. Maybe people who can't afford to open an entire restaurant, but they have an idea and they want to be able to open a small restaurant, but they don't have all the capital to open up a big one. And we've seen that in other communities where food courts are put together in one building where people can come and maybe today we'll sample Indian food or maybe some Thai food, and allow these other entrepreneurs an opportunity to go in there. And sidewalk cafes. If you go to the different towns that people have identified, like Morgan Hill and Saratoga and Gilroy and even San Jose, there's a lot of sidewalk restaurants. They're very popular right now, and we should go in that direction. Boutiques, specialty stores, stores that are open until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. My wife doesn't get home until 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So she can't go downtown because most of the businesses are closed. And the other is, can we have clean streets and sidewalks? If you walk up and down the sidewalks today and the streets today, you find that they aren't in the best shape. And maybe we can do something to try to clean it up and put a little sparkle in the downtown. Thank you.
So going back to Tom Fisher's point at the very outset and doing things in order, we're talking about the gateways without talking about high-speed rail. And that's a little bit out of sequence because whether or not high-speed rail comes, I'm getting the stop sign. Why do I feel like, all right, let me start over. So you can't really talk about the gateways to downtown Gilroy unless you know whether or not you're going to have a high-speed rail station here or not. You got to think about this and the alternative. So we have to do this mental gymnastics of what it would look like with and without. And we're going to talk about that a little later. It's probably going to be downtown. If it is downtown, downtown is going to be a draw for a huge swath of Central California. Actually, the largest draw region on a geographic basis to any one high-speed rail station will be the Gilroy station. We will draw people as far south as Paso Robles, maybe even San Luis Obispo, up to Capitola. If they want to ride high-speed rail, they're going to come through Gilroy. So we're going to go through, and eventually, 50 years from now, maybe 30, they're going to come in on trains, spur trains, and get to our station. But in the meantime, they're going to be coming in by car. And so to Craig Gartman's point about having a nice, attractive gateway that makes it appear like this is a place you want to spend your time, because we all know it is, but the appearance is lacking, we need to work on that. So the Southern Gateway is going to be where they're going to be coming in off of 10th Street, off of Monterey, and we need to work on that and welcome those people as they come in and have a seamless transition into our downtown like the airports do to make it a nice place that people want to visit when they're waiting for their train or making a transition of one kind or another. And then we need transit-oriented development. My years at VTA and Caltrain have taught me that Gilroy's not going to get trains that it needs. It's not going to get the mass transit that it needs unless we have ridership, and the way you get ridership is by building for transit. And so we need, and the place to do that is around our downtown, within a walk to the train station, and along First Street. Those are the places where that makes sense.
Roland?
Thank you for the question. I would like to see a healthy and vibrant downtown. I think that's something that we could all agree on. We have to try and capitalize on the historic nature of our downtown. You know, there's a lot of history here. We could try to capitalize on that. The downtown has done well. It's done very well because there's been a lot of committed property owners here for a very long time who have tried to do their very best to help the downtown succeed, and we have to be able to give them credit. But we need to do more. We need to attract visitors. The city can assist if businesses are willing in creating assessment districts so that the businesses can lower costs for financing of improvements. They could also create zones so that they could do some marketing for themselves. So in that sense, the city is able to play a very, very important role in partnering with some of the local businesses. With regards to the south end, you know, I think it really should be a sports and leisure entertainment area, especially with the sports park down there. This is where Morgan Hill is actually ahead of Gilroy. They were actually looking at creating a sports and leisure area so that they could attract some of the local teams to the area to stay in their hotels, and it generates sales tax revenue for them. these are absolutely critical for us. With regards to That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
What are we doing here?
Thank you. I'd like to just briefly address the gateways first. You know, I've been on the Planning Commission for 5 years, and we have provisions in place to improve the gateway for both ends of town. The concept is great. You have much higher standards for those businesses to provide more landscaping, to provide nicer looking buildings, better color palette, that sort of thing. But the city has no ability to mandate those changes. So you have to rely on the businesses that are there to agree to do it. I don't believe that that's going to change. I think the gateway is going to be the gateway until new businesses come in, and you have an opportunity to work with the new owners to improve their properties. If we get enough of those properties improved, then maybe some of their neighbors will find it in their best interest to improve their properties. As for my vision for downtown, and I'm going to address basically the central core of the downtown, I see things a little differently. I mentioned earlier I'd like to see a park downtown. I know that there's been a lot of talk about making a park down where the billiards building is now, but my vision is a little different. I think the park should be off of Monterey Road. And to me, the place for the park is in the parking lot between 6th and 5th Street on Eagleberry. It's a great sized lot. You'd make a tremendous park. And then to offset the parking, I would leave the parking structure for the library where it's proposed now by the library and supplement that with a second parking structure down maybe at 4th and Monterey Road. So now you've got bookend parking structures and a walkable downtown with less traffic downtown. And I believe that would make the downtown more appealing. Thank you.
I got it.
Thank you for asking. So for me, my vision for downtown, and obviously the north and south gateway, first of all, I think and many good things were said up here just right now, but one of the things that I look at is in regards to when we're talking about attracting businesses, we have to bring back the trust, not only in our communities, but the businesses in general. Again, we have some really dedicated, committed individuals up here today, but truly you need to make the dedication and commitment. We talked about the arts centers, we talked about parks, we talked about all this other good stuff. It's not going to happen if we're not committed. We can talk about it, but really going out and showing the community that this is what we truly want to do. And again, I'm not disagreeing with anything that was said up here, but I think as one individual, I think that that's something that I plan on bringing to City Council, is really working on the trust. The other thing too, obviously I had mentioned earlier about the high-speed rail and Caltrain. Again, that is at the center of this downtown, and being a commuter on Caltrain for over 15 years, I know the individuals that are on that train would love to come downtown, but again, you know, we talked about signage, we talked about being welcomed here. I think we really need to relook at what we have here and use the resources that we have out here. I would like to create a committee that's focused on downtown with the mayor, with the city council members, planning commission, the residents of Gilroy's, the local business owners, to really see what we can do to make this a better downtown. And all that starts with getting feedback and really listening to the members of our community. So that's one of the things I hope to bring.
So, Mr. Klecker, could you start our next question? How will you incorporate incentives for downtown redevelopment, housing, and transportation into your vision?
Well, redevelopment is sort of a bad word right now, and I don't think that's going to happen. that was tried, and it was for various reasons not enforced at the present time. However, there are I've heard of somewhat similar program proposed by, I believe, Congressman Alejo, but it's sort of tied to the redevelopment monies that may be tied to correcting lower or higher crime rate, I should say. So whatever sources of money might be possible, absolutely we should pursue them. And I think that they're really declining in what may be available. We have talked about, or some of us have mentioned, enterprise funds or enterprise areas or public-private partnerships, and anything and everything that can be that may yield impossibility certainly ought to be investigated and put to rest. I have a few ideas of my own in mind that I'm currently investigating and legally to see whether it's even in the realm of possibility, but I don't want to discuss them as yet. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I would like to do is we have an art center, and a lot of people have talked about the art center. It was proposed about 15 or 20 years ago that a building be built which would contain the art center, but also have retail around the front. It would also have housing above, and it was paid for all with private money, because people who would buy into that housing, the condos, would pay for the building, and then you have an art center with a theater and display area that would be free for the public to use. So I'd like to go down that road again, even though it is a 20-year-old idea and definitely not mine, to see if we could do something like that at the same location that we currently have the art center. Thank you.
There's a lot going on already, so kickstarting the downtown specific plan, it's already going. We've spent $16 million since I've been on the council to implement the downtown specific plan. That needs to continue, and it needs to be refined. We need to finish the downtown station area plan with respect to high-speed rail, to know how we're going to modify that plan, but there's still a lot of things in the plan, like parking, like the plaza somewhere in downtown, whether you think it belongs up between 6th and, that's the first time I've heard that, between 5th and 6th, off of Monterey, or whether it belongs where the billiard hall is. But a plaza needs to happen. We need more outdoor dining. There's still things in the specific plan that need to be implemented. There's no real reason to wait on them, and there's other things that we just need to wait on until we know. Hopefully, downtown high-speed rail told us we'd know this fall. Now they're saying first of the year what their preferred alignment is going to be, and so we need to know that. And we can only move forward with revising the downtown specific plan after the general plan is done, and the general plan is on hold pending the proposition in the fall. So we have to see all of that unfold before we can really commit to a new plan downtown with respect to the downtown specific plan.
So, Rebecca, I just want to be clear. Is the question then regarding the downtown specific plan?
It's about incentives for downtown, including housing and transportation. So no, it doesn't have to be for the specific plan.
Okay. Well, I think what we can do is look at the way other communities have done it. With regards to incentives, we've talked about, restructuring the fees, potentially restructuring the fees. I know that across the nation right now, other jurisdictions are creating what's called community development corporations, and these are nonprofit organizations that actually partner with local businesses and cities to create housing models. So things that there was one city in California that did this, there was one city in Oregon that did it, and we're seeing growth in these CDCs across the nation. So that's another opportunity for us to potentially look at doing these things. But it takes resources, it takes time, and it takes, as others have pointed out here, a commitment from the council to direct staff to look into the viability of these options. Thank you.
Rebecca, obviously I was answering the next question. The questions that I got, the list is different, so I'll come back to that if that's okay with you.
Okay. Anybody else need that same accommodation? Okay.
Thank you. You know, we've already talked about a lot of different ways to incentivize people to come downtown, but I think the number one incentive is the businesses that are down here already. If you look back just 2-3 years ago, the downtown today is a lot different. Since the URM buildings have been started to be upgraded and repaired, they're starting to be occupied, and the downtown today is a much different place. So I think the incentive for businesses to come here is the fact that you have businesses down here that are successful, and that they're drawing people down here, which they are, and then other businesses are going to want to come here. And I think that's the biggest incentive that you could have. Thank you.
Well, for me, again, the incentive piece of it is important to me as well. But like I had mentioned earlier, sort of the trust of our community. To get other business to come to downtown, you really have to support and encourage the current businesses that we have. See what we can do to keep them. Obviously, we get businesses that come and go, but we really need to re-examine how we're handling or how we're working with our current businesses. Yes, I agree with a lot of what's been said up here as well, but for me, again, what can we do to make sure that we're keeping the businesses that we currently have, so that will attract more businesses down the road. And again, in regards to housing, like I had mentioned earlier, I'm about building up and not out, so I think that in itself will attract more individuals to downtown, and again, using downtown as a resource for our community will be very beneficial.
I'm a little bit different. I don't think we need to incentivize businesses to come downtown. I think we need people to be incentivized to come downtown. What does downtown mean to us? Is it a place for our community to gather, to celebrate? Is it a place for people to come together on Saturday mornings to get fresh farm food? Businesses will come if people come. If we don't give people the reason to come, businesses will not come. Now let me tell you a 2-minute story. I only got a minute and a half. I moved here 6 years ago with my wife, and my wife said, "You will never get me to come downtown. It's full of gangs, it's dirty, I don't like it, I don't feel comfortable there." My wife is standing right behind you with a 4-month-old baby because downtown is safer. And what did we do on council? We listened to the people. Linda West contacted me before I was even selected, and she said, "We need to create a community where people want to come. Let's put lights up. Let's put a sign up." Other people said, "You know, the safety isn't right there." So we added cameras to downtown, right? We added horseback police downtown. We asked police to show up downtown. That created part of the reason why the movable feast was so successful. We gave people a reason to come downtown. Businesses will come downtown. Businesses won't stay like Mr. Peoples in front of us if people aren't visiting him. So that's what I think we need to do to incentivize downtown. It's not just about giving money, it's about getting people back to the community and making sure that we manage the way they come downtown, we preserve the values that we stand for as Gilroy, and we strengthen what we have to help it grow, not change it.
Perry, we want to go back to you. I think that.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Thanks. I'll be very brief. My question I was on the wrong number because the list changed. But the answer for downtown in a nutshell is to get the rents up. If the property owners can get their rents up, then they're incentivized to fix their URM buildings. We'll get better quality tenants. We'll get a lot more going on there. And the way you get the rents up is by the city doing its part to provide the infrastructure and the incentives, get the impact fees down, and we'll get the rents up, and that'll solve a lot of the problems. Thank you for coming back to me.
All right. We're going to be taking a break in a minute to do that, so thank you. No, we got it covered. Thank you. Right. We appreciate your help, but we got it. All right. Next question, and this goes for Craig. If elected, what would you do in your first 100 days to kickstart the implementation and funding for the downtown specific plan? How would you oversee the progress of the project? And if there's no measurable progress by staff, how would you hold them accountable? Would you support budgeting for outsourcing its implementation?
Well, let me take it a little backwards. No, I wouldn't depend on staff to do the work. And no, I wouldn't be supporting outsourcing to implement the plan. First thing I would do is I'd put a link to the downtown specific plan on Facebook and Nextdoor. It seems to be a wonderful vehicle for people to be able to look at different things, different documents for the downtown area, and get people to read it. And repost it every 3 days, because things get buried after a day or two, and then do that for about 45 days. And then have a number of community meetings, a couple of them every few weeks, for about 3 weeks, and hold them at the different schools around town and at City Hall, and then create a fast-track commission to oversee the posting, the community meetings, and to digest all the input that comes in from the people, and present those recommendations to the City Council within a week of completing all those community meetings. And then have one member of the commission also be from the Downtown Business Owners Association. With this fast-track commission, have them present every week to the City Council exactly what is going on with their meetings, what outstanding action items they have, issues, concerns, as well as the overall progress of the commission. Then the council will select the recommendations to be used to update the downtown specific plan, forward that to staff to do the needed legal work that they have to do. And I would like to see that done in the first 100 days, but not depend on staff doing it, depend on the community members to do it. Thank you.
Rebecca, this is the question that I accidentally answered last time around, so I'm going to pass it to her.
Okay.
Thank you. So, updating the downtown specific plan is absolutely critical, but as we've pointed out, we can't do an update until we know what happens with Measure H, until after the November election, and until we've updated our general plan. Once that general plan is updated, then we can start focusing in on the specific plans and the nexus studies for the master plans to identify the fee structure. With regards to implementation, though, I think where we fell short last time is we have to really put the emphasis on the implementation. It's not enough to come up with a great planning document, but then back off the throttle a little bit when it comes to the implementation. So to that end, if it requires us to set aside a small amount of money to do implementation, we should absolutely be open to that and have an honest conversation about the best approach to do that. Is it internally? I don't know. But we shouldn't be afraid to outsource it to a private company to do that implementation that will develop milestones and try to identify some of those low-hanging fruits that could be done immediately. Then we've started to put some points on the board, and we were able to start moving forward with some steam and trying to fulfill the implementation plan. Thank you.
We gotta pass the mic back, please. We can't use this one anymore. We got scolded. Oh, we can. No, I could use it, but not that.
Thank you. This question here, this really gets to where the rubber meets the road, because it talks about funding. And you know, it's great to talk about all the things that we're going to do for the downtown, but the city needs money to fund. And for anybody to say that we're going to just do a budget session and we're going to set aside money, in my view, is unrealistic. The city operates on a budget that's a balanced budget. All that really means is that they don't spend more than they take in, and they already have accruing deficits that they're not addressing now, and those are deficits that are needed for the city. Most of what most residents would consider the items we're talking about for the downtown are things that the city wants to do, not needs to do. just to fix roads and maintenance, road maintenance and street maintenance, the city needs $3 million additional per year to fund road maintenance. And if we don't do the road maintenance, then we're not going to have any streets. They got a new fire station coming online. We're getting the fire station from Glen Loma, but there's got to be firefighters put in that station. City's got to pay for that. There's going to be fire trucks to buy. City's got to pay for that. There's unfunded pension liabilities. City's got to pay for that. I believe the only way that you're going to get funding for this is for passionate people like you to do a grassroots bond effort. Once we know what things are going to cost, get a bond on the ballot that's specific for the downtown, and generate your money right there in the next election.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. For me, so it was mentioned earlier, obviously we don't know where we're going until after November. Obviously, once November comes around, we'll have a better update or better understanding of where we need to go. For me, again, it's I believe that we have some great staff here within our city. As an individual, I would really work with our city manager to identify those fundings. Being on the school board, we know we have a budget, but we know that we have to meet, we have to talk, we have to really understand where that money goes. Obviously, we don't want it to come out of the classroom when we're looking to fund things or build items or build facilities. So, again, really working with our city administrators, working with our city council members, and also working with our community. I am for local business, but I also want to make sure that people understand that if we can find someone who's more experienced, somebody who's going to come in and really give us a solid plan, I'm also up for that as well. But again, really going back and finding the funds and seeing where we can spend those funds effectively, I think for me is important.
Comes back to my opening statement. What do we need to do for town? And in the first 100 days, that's not a lot of time. And I could tell you, I've sat on city council, and before something gets agendized and shows up on the dais, that could take 45 days in of itself. So the first thing I would do is I would bring back to my 3 original points. What are we doing for the business process at City Hall? What policies do we need to bring onto the agenda? And then how do we position Gilroy and our EDC so that people know what we're about? The truth of the matter is, our rents are about 75 cents a square foot here. Okay, 75 cents to $1.25 a square foot. So to get reinvestment into downtown, it's going to take a lot of money. If a business owner has $100,000 to do in retrofitting, he's going to need about $200,000 to make that happen. $100,000 for the work, $100,000 for reserve. We've made some policy changes that address that. Those were ideas from the community that were brought to council. So I will listen to what the community members have to say, as I've done in the past, and I'll make sure that those items get agendized.
Paul.
Sorry.
Certainly others have spoken to the need for step 1, step 2 in updating the specific plan. And we all know that the cart comes before the horse, or the horse comes before the cart, or whatever it is. It should be only one way. So it does take more time than we'd really like to have. And certainly what I have observed in prior years on the council and in recent past years has been at the first quarter of the year, and probably be similar this year, is going to be taken up in the business of the strategic plan and in the business of hiring significant new employees that are in the retirement pipeline this year. So I think that to look for it in the first 100 days, it's really not going to happen, and we shouldn't gear ourselves to that, but it needs to be done promptly, and I think that it needs to be done sequentially. And another thing about incentive to get people downtown, I'm really impressed with the number of people that have been drawn to the summertime events downtown. And as one of my colleagues says here, the way to get people downtown is to get businesses downtown, but also to get people downtown. So I'm strongly in favor of the events that have been held and the success of them, and certainly would encourage them. And no one needs to be afraid of coming downtown, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Perry, you will start the next question. Based on our online poll, it's a distraction. I'm gonna have to ask you to stop. Yeah, thank you. No, like I said, we have it taken care of.
I'm done. Thank you.
Based on our online poll, 99% of responders voted to build a parking structure using library bond funds on 6th and Eagleberry Street, which is within the 5-minute walk of the library. Do you support this idea, and would you bring it to council within 60 days of being seated?
So this is, to elaborate on the question, this is a question that came up a lot in the 2010 to 2014 time frame. I think I'm the only one looking around who was on the council the last 2 years of Mayor Piñero's term and the first 2 years of Mayor Gage's term, when this issue was discussed a lot, because there's money left over, bond money left over from the library, which was provided for building a structure for parking within a certain distance of the library. And I advocated vigorously for not building it where the old courthouse used to be, next to the old police department, but to build that on the corner of 6th and Eagleberry, or 5th, Eagleberry and 6th, the northeast corner of Eagleberry and 6th, because it could be dual purposed. It could serve downtown and it could serve the library. And those discussions went on for quite some time while we were negotiating to buy the old county building that was the courthouse. And ultimately, I was outvoted 6-1. So not only am I in favor of this, it might have been my idea.
Great. Roland?
Well, I've been told that when it comes to the downtown parking garage, if there was one, that Bond Council has a very strong opinion about it. I've been told that nowhere in the bond documents is a time frame associated with a parking garage. Further, I don't remember seeing any kind of time reference in the ballot language for the bond. Remember, this is money that is collected from homeowners here in Gilroy that are paying their property taxes, that is used for the purpose of building the library. So we have to respect that process. We owe it to the taxpayers to collect the money and do with it what we promised them that we would do with it. Now, having said all that though, I am open to the idea of either going back to the voters and talking to them about using that excess money for a parking structure downtown, or more easily approaching Bond Council through city administration and asking for an opinion. Is this money available? Can we use it for downtown? My fear is we could actually purchase a parking garage, build a parking garage downtown, over by the library, and it gets underutilized because there isn't enough people using it. So I would rather have it in a place where it's going to get the use, it's going to make things easier for visitors downtown, for merchants downtown, for anybody coming downtown. So I am very much open to that idea. I just want to be able to respect the taxpayers and the use of their money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I already addressed this a little bit previously as to why I might not be in favor of doing this. But there are other reasons. One is you hear from taxpayers all the time that they vote for something and then their elected representatives change the focus of what was in the ballot measure. I've got a lot of feedback from the people who walked neighborhoods, did phone banking, and got the library measure passed. They're still just as passionate about having the parking structure by the library. Now, it's true, it's a 5-minute walk from 6th and Eagleberry to the library, but it's also a 5-minute walk from 7th and Church to the downtown. So I'm not saying I couldn't be convinced to agree to this, but we need to get people that were on that library committee to come and tell me that they're in favor of it, because they're the ones that went out and got the votes, and the people that voted for it are expecting that parking structure to be close to the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. So for me, I think, again, like I had mentioned earlier, sort of the parking structure, I'm in favor of the 6th Street in Eagleberry. I think that would be a perfect location. In regards to the library funds, yes, I agree. I think we need to have some community input on that. But as one individual, I am in favor of sort of coming up with a plan and making it a priority to pursue the library bond funds and seeing how we can get this project moving forward. So for me, once again, I think that location that we're talking about, I think it's a prime location. It's accessible to downtown, and I'm in much favor of working to come up with a plan sooner than later.
Order, so maybe I follow rolling on a couple questions.
We're just about
Okay, Perry. All right.
You want to queue up?
You want to ask that question again?
Mm-hmm.
It's for Daniel.
Thanks.
We stopped at Daniel?
Yeah, I just finished. So
yeah, he's next.
Okay.
What was your answer?
Mm-hmm. Everyone seated? Okay. Is our timekeeper ready?
Timekeeper is as ready as we can.
Excellent. Okay. Mr. Harney, based on our online poll, over 99% of responders voted to build a parking structure using library bond funds on 6th and Eagleberry, which is within a 5-minute walk of the library. Do you support this idea, and would you bring it to council within 60 days of being seated?
Yes, I support this idea, and let me talk to you a little bit about connected communities. I've talked to you already about the leadership issues we're having within the city. Now we need to connect the communities. So before we build a parking structure, the first question I would ask is, do we have bicycle parking? We've got several miles of bicycle trails. Are they all connected, and do they lead to the downtown? And do we have safe, secure parking areas for those people that choose to come downtown with their families for that community event? So that's the first question. Now, in regards to the parking structure, I've actually had a very, very steep learning curve. And one of the things I had to understand working with Gabe Gonzalez, our city administrator, was how much money is available for parking from the existing bond fund, and how much parking will that pay for? The bond fund for the library only allows us so many parking spots. We have about a little less than $6 million in bond fund available to build a parking structure. And I don't know how much the one in Morgan Hill costs, but I could almost guarantee you it's a hell of a lot more than $6 million. So the conditions of that parking structure is it has to be near the library, and only so many spaces will be designated for that bond. So the rest of the money has to come from somewhere else. And that is a discussion we need to have. Alternatively, we should be looking at which parking areas we do have. We've got the Caltrain station where we could park. We've got an unused creamery building that, in my opinion, should be destroyed and be turned into parking. We've got behind the Amelia's, and we've got the Paseo, and I think those are great starts. But yes, I do support additional parking downtown.
At the outset, I mentioned one of my priorities was the problem of parking downtown. That's consistently mentioned as a problem. We need an updated parking survey as to where the parking garage goes. It ought to go where it ought to go, and the heck with any hurdles that seem to be there, whether they are legal or whether they are funding or whatever. The initial bond issue was, I don't remember how many years ago, but maybe 8 or 9 years ago, something like that. So if we need to update the requirement for this particular project, we need to do that. And if it takes bending the legal issues or or getting a bond opinion, or even seeking more money. That's what ought to be done. We certainly don't want to end up with a parking garage that is underutilized or in the wrong place, consistent with present day requirements. So it ought to go where it ought to go.
Yes, I support the location of 6th and the Eagleberry, and yes, I would bring it to the council within 60 days. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Based on our online poll, over 99% of responders, I think you've answered that already. Yeah.
He's got the first question.
Yeah. You ready? So, do you support the high-speed rail coming through downtown, or the alternative route that would lie east of the outlet center? If high-speed rail comes through Gilroy, what will you do to mitigate the impacts to downtown, the east side, and the main arteries, particularly traffic congestion, walling off the east side, and sound pollution?
So, back in February of 2012, before my time on the council, there was a special council meeting, and at that meeting, Perry made a motion and was seconded by Peter Leroy Munoz to bring high-speed rail through the downtown as a preferred alignment. I support bringing it back to council because I think now we have more information than the council in 2012 had at that time. So while I think at that time it might have been the best decision, we certainly have more information now available to us. We know what some of those impacts are going to be. We know what some of the train routes are going to look like, and the potential impacts. The look and feel of downtown is going to change with high-speed rail coming through downtown. Streets that we know right now that we're able to pass through are going to be closed off. They're going to be non-existent now. So again, I think with new information, we have to be able to reconsider whether or not the downtown alignment is still our preferred alignment. And we really seriously need to have a very frank and honest conversation with the downtown business owners, because they're going to be most impacted by this. During the closure of Eagleberry, we were getting complaints about, how long it was taking. Folks, if high-speed rail comes through downtown, we're talking about years of impacts, not just, over the course of a summer. So there will be impacts. We need to have an honest conversation with the business community and on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. As I stated previously, I sit on the high-speed rail downtown plan committee, and I just start by trying to let you know where we are with that plan. There are 2 meetings left for our committee before we're going to send a recommendation to the Planning Commission and City Council. One of those meetings is the last community outreach meeting. It's going to be held, it was just scheduled Friday, it's going to be on October 12th, that's a Wednesday night, 7 o'clock at Elliott School. I would implore the downtown people to come to that meeting and get a better understanding of how this high-speed rail is going to impact you as it comes through downtown. I think it would be prudent for council to revisit whether this is the right decision, that we recommend that it comes to the downtown. When I first read the report for high-speed rail, I was originally a supporter for bringing it down here. I began to question whether that was the right choice. Since then, I've come to the conclusion that the station needs to be downtown. And I also believe that high-speed rail, although they tell us that they have not made a decision, I believe that they've already decided it's going to be downtown. They're not making any plans, no contingency plans for this station out at the outlets. All the money's being spent making a plan for downtown Gilroy. So we need to be looking at that and trying to figure out what's the best way to implement that plan to make it the least disruptive to the businesses and the communities that are surrounding it. So I would implore you to come to those meetings because we need community input. We're not getting near enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So you touched on some of my thoughts, but a couple things in regards to sort of the high-speed rail. First of all, we know it's going to affect a few individuals and especially the east side residents of Gilroy, where that currently is scheduled to go through. Obviously, there's a lot of concern with the east side residents, and again, I want to make sure that we work with the high-speed rail authority to make sure that we work on, if it's a sound barrier, whatever it may be, to sort of help accommodate our east side residents. But the other thing that hasn't been mentioned, it's also going to affect our schools. Where it's currently scheduled to go through, it will affect where South Valley School is currently. So as a school district, we've been talking with obviously our mayor and sort of other individuals in regards to that issue, because we're very concerned on what's going to happen. So again, with the passage of Measure E, the funds that we have, obviously we're going to build a new elementary school, but we're also looking at rebuilding South Valley as well. And with all sort of where the high-speed rail is going, we're going to have to move that school. But I also see it as a positive for downtown. With all the individuals that are going to be coming downtown, it could be very beneficial to our downtown community, having these individuals come downtown. So again, there are some concerns, but I will work with the authorities and make sure that we address these concerns for our community as well.
I do support high-speed rail coming through downtown. And I think there's a couple of things we need to understand as a community. First, high-speed rail is not going to be used by us to commute up to San Jose or to San Francisco. It's just not going to be economically viable for our community to do that. The fare ticket is going to be way too high. But if you go back to one of the questions we had earlier, what is your vision for downtown? This is directly connected to my vision for downtown. That south end of downtown needs to be the gateway, an economic gateway. So people will be taking high-speed rail to downtown, and imagine your soccer players that come from LA or come from San Diego through high-speed rail. They get here, they get off, they go to their hotel, they check in, and then from there they catch a quick shuttle bus down to the soccer park and play their soccer tournament. That's what high-speed rail means for this community. One of the reasons I'm opposed to the alternate plan, which is on the east side behind the shopping outlets, is because it will destroy more farmland. And we have to preserve as much farmland as we can if we want to continue to make this place a tourist destination that brings in shopping, that brings in farm to fresh tables, and that has hotel and wineries all connected in one. And what better way than to bring high-speed rail to downtown and allow people to experience part of Gilroy and our spice of life?
I'm in favor of reevaluating at some time where the high-speed rail ought to be. It's been a few years since that determination was made. We know more, as one of my colleagues said here, we know more about the problems than we did before, and I think we have a better basis for at least re-examining the decision. And it would be the worst thing in the world to end up with the high-speed rail cutting through our town and having unintended consequences that people in the future are going to say, why in the world did they ever do this? So I'm in favor of reevaluating it at some time, and that need not be a 2 or 3 year process by any means. It can be done, and I think that we need to do that before any final decision is made. And I certainly recognize that the final decision is not made by us, but it's by the high-speed rail. And there are issues of funding at the highest levels that who knows what's going to happen there. I sure don't know.
Initially, I said by the outlets. Outside of that, thought it was a great idea because you aren't displacing people from their homes, you aren't displacing businesses, you aren't creating this barrier which will essentially be splitting our town in half. If it was to go downtown, I would say elevated so that you don't create that barrier, so that you don't lose your crossings that we have with the current railroad, and it's much safer. Thank you.
So it is true that I made the motion after a tremendous amount of community input over meetings that ranged for, as I recall, 2 or 3 years, and I think I was the only one on the council that's before you when that decision was made. It was unanimous. The council all felt that the appropriate alignment was, as you were told, downtown, but what you weren't told is the council said that an elevated alignment would not be appropriate, because what we want to see, the best possible alternative, if we're going to have high-speed rail inflicted on us, it's not our choice, it's coming, whether we want it or not. If it's going to come through at Gilroy, we want a station, and we want it in a trench. We want it in a partially covered trench that submerges north of town and emerges south of town. It's a very expensive proposition, but then you can build on top of that trench. The trains are 600 feet long, and you can build on top of 600 feet, and then you need to open 600 feet, and then you can build on top of it. So it creates an opportunity for parks and more transit-oriented development in our downtown, and you won't have the sound problems and everything else. That's the preferred alternative. The idea that you were going to put it out behind the outlets, I mean, everybody's outraged about the city in sprawl. If you put a high-speed rail station out there that's going to be moving all of these people through, why is this downtown where it is? Because of the train station. It used to be Old Gilroy's out by San Ysidro School, right? Why did downtown leave the area out by San Ysidro School and come here? Because of the train station. Do you want to create a new downtown, a fourth problem that's going to kill this downtown by putting the train station out there? Makes no sense. And everybody who's telling you up here that they're going to reevaluate the issue is either misleading you or misinformed, because high-speed rail is going to make a decision this fall before these people are even seated on the council.
Thank you. So, part of the question included what would you do specifically to mitigate the impacts on the east side, including walling it off, and the amount of housing that we're going to lose, the amount of affordable housing, of rental units, right, from Leavesley to 10th Street. A number of people are going to lose their homes, homeowners and renters. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. What are we going to do to help those folks? Who wants to start?
I will.
How did I know that?
There we go. I'll be happy to start because I've thought about these issues, and be happy to start because I have thought about these issues, and this is exactly why putting it in a trench needs to happen, because you can build on top of the trench, right? So you mitigate most of the negative consequences. You don't have, it's grade separated, and you can build all manner of housing, a mix of housing around the transit center on top of the trench. And I'm sorry, there was a second part to that question, and I'm not sure I got it. It's not
the wall.
Right. So if it's in a trench, there's no need for a wall, right? So that solves that problem.
Okay.
So the question, Rebecca, that you're asking, I think, is valid. We know statistically the household income on the east side of town is approximately $40,000 annually. On the west side of town, it's $80,000 and above. With high-speed rail going through downtown, we have impacts to renters, to homeowners, to the school district, because now they might have to move at least a portion of South Valley Junior High. There's impacts all around. The best that we could do is try to work together to try to find some of these solutions for the displaced homeowners. I'm hoping high-speed rail will be able to help in some way to address some of those concerns that the council needs to bring to their attention about, the impacts to our community. I don't know when high-speed rail is going to make the decision. Perry's very confident it's going to happen this fall. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the reality is we have to stay engaged with the residents when it comes to high-speed rail and the impacts to our community. Thank you.
All right.
Just briefly, It's unlikely that the High-Speed Rail Authority is going to put that train in a trench. They've told us that it costs an extra $1 billion just for the city of Gilroy to trench that. So, and that's an open trench. That's without any lids on it. So the cost, I believe, is going to be prohibitive to putting it in a trench. But I do believe that the aerial alignment with the train up in the air, which I really don't like aesthetically, is the best resolution to these problems, because in the end they'll take less land to build it. Railroad Street might even be able to stay intact with the modified at grade. All of Railroad Street is going away. I don't believe that there's going to be any houses impacted directly by high-speed rail. They're not. The alignment in the maps that I've seen doesn't show any housing that I saw coming out. It's all commercial businesses. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I answered. Are you done?
You're done. Okay.
Anybody else?
All right.
That was an added question.
It was. You have an option to answer. You got it? Take it.
Why not? Some of these reasons that have been mentioned here are exactly why I think that it should be reevaluated. We just need to do that, and the High-Speed Rail Authority may not even allow us the time that is necessary to do that, but so be it. You know, I think we ought to put our best foot forward and at least try to get what I would call and referred to in business school as the correct business decision. And if that's what we ought to search for, and it may be that the correct business decision is where it is proposed now, and it may be that it is some combination of something different. I always wonder, for example, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe Perry does or others that are closer to it, but what happens to the existing tracks in agreement with the, I guess it's SP, you know, if it were in an elevated position. There's a whole lot of really seemingly insurmountable problems here to deal with overall funding for the project, and whether the South gets money before the North gets money, and whether or not SP is going to agree to anything. So there's a whole lot of issues. I think we should do our best to try to address them as best we can for the betterment of the city of Gilroy.
Thank you, Paul. Could you pass that to Perry? Perry, you'll start the last question. What specific ideas would you introduce to reduce red tape at the city as it relates to doing business in Gilroy and more particularly downtown?
Well, I'll have to start this in the past tense because we've already done this. So I've been the mayor now for, let's see, it's September, so for 9 months. And we've hired a new city administrator who I think is well received by the community. Everybody seems to think he's doing a good job. I'm hearing from people who are doing business with the city that things are getting much better. I see nodding heads out there. I think that's true. We are making some personnel changes. Those are ongoing, and you'll hear about those as they happen. We are also embarking on a program to have an outside company that specializes in looking at community development processes, and that includes through public works and through community development, to look at what is broken. Because obviously, over the years, something has been broken. And so how are we going to fix that to provide a more customer-friendly experience for people who want to do renovation of buildings in downtown, want to fix their buildings in downtown, and want to have to deal with the city on development issues throughout town? All of that is being addressed now, so that's underway. The council has approved that passed unanimously the other night, and we're moving forward on that. So we're already doing a lot to, as the question asks, cut red tape as it relates to doing business in Gilroy. Which way you want it to go?
Rolling.
So, in my first one-on-one with our city administrator, I told him the biggest complaint that we get is from either the development community or your average homeowner who calls us up to council in general and says, this is the problem that we're having. And the problems always go back to the community development office, the permitting process. You know, a person walks through the counter, talks to a planner, talks to whoever, and gets an answer. They go back, they fix their problem, they come back, and they happen to talk to a second planner, and they get a second set of answers. And this process goes on and on and on. So in my conversation with him, I said, how much would it cost to bring a consultant in? And he says, Roland, you know, it's not that expensive. He says, we could do it for a very small amount. And I said, Gabe, all I'm looking for is an opportunity to have a third person come into City Hall, review the process, and help the council identify with best practices from other jurisdictions what we can do. How can we fix the system? And maybe the council will get a list of 10 things, and the first 5 or 6 we could do immediately. Maybe the next 2 or 3 we have to budget for. Maybe the next one we just say, you know what, this isn't right for Gilroy, and we pass on it. But we have opportunities to change it. The council unanimously approved this past council meeting. It's going forward. They've already had their kickoff meeting, so I'm very, very proud of that. The second thing is something I had mentioned earlier, is potentially the creation of these community development corporations as a way of partnering with businesses and City Hall to try to identify new opportunities for things. Thank you.
Way down.
I guess on this question, I'm going to have to say that I'm in agreement with Perry and Roland. I go to all the city council meetings, and I know that they just approved this, so it's premature to really talk about what we can do to reduce red tape until we get the consultant's report. Thank you.
Well, for me, so a couple things. So I was lucky enough to be on the hiring committee for our new city administrator, and sort of talking with Mr. Gabe Gonzalez about sort of what the issues that I've been presented with. And I have to agree, I think he brings in a new, fresh perspective on what the city needs. And my hope and goal is that he's going to continue hearing the voices of our community. But as a city council member, I will make sure that we work together, because again, you need to work together to get things done. So working with him very closely to help him understand what we need out here. You know, when I look at sort of how we handle stuff at the school district regarding sort of red tape, again, I look at it as a one-stop shop. You know, we have vendors. Annually, we contract out about $16 million in vendors. And I'm proud to say that most of those vendors come from Gilroy. And if not, majority of them come from Santa Clara County. But for me, as one city council member, again, continue to work collaboratively with our city administrator and others to re-examine the processes. Again, sort of creating a one-stop shop for businesses so they get all their needs taken care of right then and there. There's no reason why you should go back and forth. So as your city council member, I'm going to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Taking out red tape. Let's talk about customer services that really transform marketplaces. Would you rather go into Charter and pay your bill and experience customer service, or would you rather go to Apple? Completely different experience. We need to create experiences like Apple. We need to just cut down the red tape and get rid of it. Let me give you one really good example. A developer stopped me while I was putting up my sign at First and Santa Teresa. It's the only vertical sign at First and Santa Teresa, so you should stand out. And he was very proud because he got his plans approved in the first try. And what he told me was that's the first time, as far as he's concerned, any project that he ran that he got through approval in his first try. And so he says there is some progress being made. Let me give you a second example. Think about the sign ordinance. If somebody wants to bring in a new sign, they have to fill out paperwork, bring it to City Hall, have it approved, have it reviewed. Hopefully the person at the counter can make the decision. If they can, it's got to go back and forth and back and forth. At the last City Council meeting, I said, I want the form online. Take the picture, fill out the form, one stop. Approve it, don't approve it, I don't care. Make it simple for businesses to know and understand what they need. That's cutting out red tape. When we hired Gabe, I was on that hiring committee and I went out to Rohnert Park and I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce and I spoke to their ADC people and I asked, is this a guy that we can trust to cut out the red tape? And they gave me examples of things that he has done to cut out the red tape. And this waste process elimination we're looking at that everyone has talked about here is one of the things that Gabe and I both brought up at our last city council retreat. And so that's how we're cutting out red tape.
Thank you. I agree with Mayor Perry and Tom that certainly recent action has taken place to mitigate this particular problem, and it's been going on. I'm a member of the Planning Commission, as is Tom, and have been so for I think 2 years now. And one of the concerns I have always had is the complaints, as I mentioned before, is the complaints I hear from developers or homeowners or whatever getting stuff through the city hall, and some of it relates to those darn impact fees or whatever fees for this or that. But the in recent time, the Planning Commission has approved, and I believe the Council has also approved, changes to the zoning code that allow for different categories in the downtown district, for example, which would streamline that particular process, and that's a step in the right direction. And I think at our candidate briefing the other night, it was mentioned that one of the tasks for the upcoming year is to revisit the zoning code and further update it, which is sort of a hefty document, and I think that would go a long way towards improving the processing. And I think that this is an ongoing process, and it needs to be constantly addressed, and it's not ending yet. And I would be very concerned if I thought it was ending, because it's not.
A lot of really good ideas. And some of the ones that I was thinking about being online is a fast-tracking permitting process. Be able to fill out the form online, submit your drawings, submit your payment, and within a day or two, you get your reply, get your permit, you can print it out and post it for wherever you're doing. Also, people have talked about the business license process. That should be online, and some permits do require some approvals from internal departments, but have them online as well, so that your goal is to approve a business license within 4 business hours. And also make the renewal process online as well. And then what we'd like to do is less than 6 months approval on any kind of industrial application. Because if we want to attract businesses, we want to attract industry, we need to be focused on making that process quick and painless. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I'll hold on to that, Craig. Perry, have you gone?
I did go. Thank you.
You started, right? So our last, we have 1 minute each for you to close. We were going to take Q&A from the audience, but we're at our 3 o'clock mark. But Craig, if you would like to close, you each have 1 minute. 1 minute. Yes.
Okay, great. I won't take 1 minute. Joe, thank you for putting this on. Been watching your comments, the comments of the community. I think it's a great tool. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. Some people get a little outrageous in some of the things they say in there and calling you names, but I think it's a great tool, and it gave me a much better insight of what's happening, where people's concerns are, and that's what needs to happen as far as the city council. We're hired by the voters. We are here to represent you and your interests. We are to bring those interests to the council. And that's my responsibility if you elect me come this November. Thank you.
Thank you. So downtown, this Gilroy is where I've been my entire life. We all know that there's really 3 things: the rerouting of 101, the outlets, and the URM buildings really put the stop on downtown for a long time. I've always had a downtown focus with respect to serving on the council. This is where my first job was in high school. I worked at Lido Gallery downtown. My first house was on 5th Street across from the Willie House. I've lived downtown. Downtown is the heart of this community. In fact, this is where my grandparents met, at the creamery right across the street in 1948. Charlie and Donna Mulch met there. So downtown is, the history of downtown is my history. The recovery has been slow. It has been painful. But we're now, the Great Recession didn't help. But now we're seeing Jose Montez and his building across the street. Halls is going back up. And before long, we're going to have Casey Tibbs back up on the corner on his horse. We're going to have, hopefully, electrification of Caltrain. We're going to have increased train service. There's going to start being, by 2018, there should be, if things go well, 3 more morning trains and 3 more afternoon trains. And so we need to continue moving forward. To do that, we need consensus building. So I ask for your vote in helping me to continue bringing Gilroy together for a better Gilroy and a better downtown.
Thank you, Rebecca. Again, I'd like to thank the Gilroy community for a better downtown for hosting today's event. You know, the reason why I got in this race is because I want to restore confidence in the mayor's office. Gilroy residents have felt disenfranchised by the appointed mayor. Our citizens have felt disrespected at council meetings and their comments ignored because decisions have already been made behind closed doors. We can have thoughtful debate and come to different conclusions with our residents, but never, never should they be disrespected or marginalized. Public safety obviously is important to me. It's a flagship responsibility of local government. Nothing is more important than keeping our children and communities, our children and our neighborhoods safe. Economic development, I certainly want to focus on it. I want to try to improve our growth strategies for our city. Strong economic policies will generate local jobs. I'm endorsed by many Democrats, Republicans, farmers, business owners, downtown business owners. I wear their endorsements like a badge of honor. Thank you.
Yeah, just give it to Paul. Yeah.
Again, Joe, thank you for hosting this gathering today. It's been very, very worthwhile and beneficial. I would like to say that I would like to continue my work on the City Council, and as I did before, and I have really been part of the city structure almost all the time. At one time or another, I've been on a city commission or a committee of some kind in service to the city, and I think that's something I did as a part of my Navy life, and we've continued that, and part of my issue is government service. So I ask for your vote again to return to the City Council, and I'd like to see a great deal more teamwork, not only on the council, but among organizations within the City of Gilroy, such as the Chamber, the Downtown Business Association, the Economic Development Committee, etc. More teamwork.
Thanks, Paul. Many people have asked why they should vote for Daniel Harney. My answer is simple. I represent new ideas, trusted leadership, and connected communities. The council selected me out of 9 people. I want to modernize our city, improve our city services, and bring back the revitalization of downtown. I've shared some of my ideas with you today. I've got plenty more. My vision for downtown is that it remains a hub for our community to come and celebrate and for families to be together. It's a place for business, and it'll be the center of prosperity once high-speed rail comes in here. When we talk about trusted leadership, consider the following. I'm endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. They oppose Measure H. I'm supported by the League of Conservationists voters. I'm also supported by the Sierra Club, who support Measure H. I represent balance. The community talks, I listen, I try to weigh all the options, understand the history that got us here, and then look towards what is the right path forward. You've got 9 months to judge me. That's what I've been doing since I was selected on City Council, and I want to continue to serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've had 8 years to sort of see my body of work, being on the school district,
for 8 years, seen where, as a school district, we've gone from an API of 600 to over 800. So we've done a lot of wonderful things here, and I want to continue that on to City Council. I want to thank Joe, obviously, and Rebecca for having us here today. From my current position, again, I represent over 12,000 students here in Gilroy, over 1,000 employees here in Gilroy. So I want to continue that trust that they have in me over to City Council. I also ask you, get to know who you're voting for. Do research on all of us. Know who you're truly voting for. And I'd like to always end it with this, the motto that we use for our school district: character counts. And with me, like I've been told, if I say something, I will follow through, and I will fight for the citizens of Gilroy. And I ask you to vote for Fred Tovar. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out here today to listen to what we have to say. I hope that you've gotten to know me a little better and how I think and how I would approach the council chair. I've been on the Planning Commission for 5 years. I have a record. It's available for people that want to see it. And I'm always willing to talk to anybody about issues that are on the agenda. I can be contacted through my website, tomforgilroy.com. If you contact me, I will meet with you. I'll talk with you. I'll return your calls, and I'll return your emails. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, that's everyone. Let's give them a hand for being out here in 95-degree heat, for putting up with our questions. And I think we, what time do we have till, Joe?
It's 3 now.
Yeah. Take some time to network, follow up with some questions, and thank you all again for being here.
Thank you.